the idea is, well, let's align what you do with things that matter to you and spend more of your time on things that matter and less of your time on things that don't.
ProCognita, Get Agile Podcast. Personal Agility. Interview with Peter Stevens. Hi and welcome to Get Agile Podcast. I'm Tomasz Wykowski from ProCognita and today with me is Peter Stevens. Hey.
Hey there.
Peter, you're a certified Scrum trainer, but also you're the co-author of a Personal Agility book, right?
Correct, yes. Mm-hmm.
And can we see it? I don't have a copy, so you need to show it yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for those people who are not are listening to us, it's a Personal Agility book, co-author with Maria Matelli, to whom we say hello now. And so let's start with the Personal Agility book, I believe.
Okay.
Let's start with the question why. I mean, why? What is the reason why you started writing this book? Also, so what you want to achieve with this book?
Okay. Well, what happened is I started experimenting with the patterns that became personal agility. I guess in about 2016, so it's like 6 or 7 years ago now. And what I discovered is that they helped me have great results in my life. I started sharing those patterns with other people, and they sent me things like, "Hey, this really works." And very, very early on, I met Maria Matelli, and she said, "You need to reach a lot of people with this." And so we said, and she was so excited about it, she wanted to be a part of it. So we decided to write the book together. And what we discovered is not only does it really work for organizing your life, but in fact, people were getting really amazing transformations in their lives. I mean, really going from, struggling to thriving, through the use of personal agility. And so we started collecting these case studies. And we've also been collecting case studies of organizations that have been using personal agility. And so basically, the short answer is it really works. Great things happen when you kind of align what you do with what you care about. And that's something that works at a very personal level. It works at a team level. It works at an organization level. And so, we believe that there's tremendous potential for people to either improve their own lives or for companies to improve their own effectiveness in what they do. And so this book is a first step in kind of sharing how to do it with the world, and also an invitation to start the conversation with people and companies who want to improve, to align what they do with what really matters to them.
Okay, so as far as I remember, the first conversation I had about this idea was 2015, so even earlier than 2016, I believe.
Wow, okay.
I believe.
Okay.
That was
we're germinating. Yep.
Yeah, that was the time we got training. So that was 2015, I believe. Anyway, let's go. So just to mention here for the people who listen to us, is like this is not just a theory. It's based on the experiments of different people. And so let's have a look at the main ideas behind the personal agility. What is there? What is the difference from the other ideas about the agility itself?
Okay, so a couple of things. Maybe the first place to start is really a very simple observation. Time is your most valuable currency. Okay, you only get to spend it once. Okay, you can't roll back the clock and say, "Let's do it again." And so, the idea is, well, let's align what you do with things that matter to you and spend more of your time on things that matter and less of your time on things that don't. And that proves to be a very powerful principle, okay? Because you can use that to build alignment. You can use that, with yourself, with other people, and it just creates a natural focus. And so personal agility starts with the idea of purpose, okay? So what really matters? Which is initially a very powerful question until you've got it figured out, and then it becomes like navigation stars guiding you to your destination. Okay, so if the first element is purpose, the second element is navigation. Okay, in Scrum we call this inspect and adapt. Where are we? Where are we going? Is where we are going where we want to be going? And if there's any deviation between where you are going and where you want to be going, you can update your course. Okay, and yes. Okay, then we get cadence. Okay, Scrum, we would say inspect and adapt at regular intervals. So the idea is knowing your fix once is fine, checking your fix every week, where you are, that helps you stay on course to your overall destination. And I think where personal agility has really integrated more modern concepts of agility, so we actually started with powerful questions, with dialogue as the basis of personal agility. So personal agility is not a process to follow. It's fundamentally a collection of questions to ask yourself to help you align what you're doing with what you really care about at regular intervals. And then on top of that, we add things like visualization, which we have from other agile frameworks. And this gives us a simple, very explainable kind of basic package to navigate life and life's challenges, as I say, both at home and at work. And I feel like we've kind of discovered, elements or building blocks. We can take these building blocks and combine them. And, this actually gives us the tools for leadership. So it's proved to be a very, very scalable approach to leading yourself and leading others. And so that's kind of where personal agility starts here at the core and then is very extensible into really just about any domain.
Okay, so one thing that I noticed what you said is like something I'm missing in Scrum is like setting up the goal. I mean, there is a goal as a concept, but you say, okay, setting the goal, what you want to achieve in your life, which is pretty difficult question. So how do you help in this one, and how do you help in this one by personal agility?
Yeah. So one of the things about Scrum, Scrum has this concept of a product goal. Okay, and Scrum values focus highly. Okay, and
it says have a goal, right? I can tell you the same. You can have a goal in your life, but it's like what's next, right?
Right. Okay. Now the problem is that works really well for a development team which is trying to make something happen. Okay. If you look at places like Apple or any of the Musk companies these days, they all have very, very clear long-term and intermediate term goals, and that's great. But the problem is for most of us, we don't have that single-mindedness. Okay. Yes, we want to achieve our goal, but we also want to maintain good relationships with our family. We want to have a healthy work-life balance. So we're not actually, it's not that we have a sharp focus on one goal. We have a number of things that really matter. Okay. And we need to kind of keep these things in balance, and so you're kind of you're sailing a course while the winds are trying to push you to the left and the right, and everybody wants something from you. And all of those things will take you in all sorts of interesting places, just not to your goal. And even if your goal is just being the person who you want to be, okay, how do you maintain that sense of, who am I and how do I be that person? And so what really matters, we think of it more like navigation stars. Okay, so think of, before there was GPS, you could just turn on the box and know where you are. Well, you had a sextant, you had a watch, you look at the pole star that would tell you your latitude. You look at the stars at Orion's belt, what time they come up over the horizon, that tells you your longitude, assuming you've got a good clock and the right charts. And the navigation stars, you're not necessarily sailing to the North Pole or to Orion's belt, but they tell you where you are and they help you navigate to get where you want to be. And, remember what I said about, time and how it's your most valuable currency? Well, how you choose to spend or how you choose to invest that currency says a lot about what you care about. And so one of the first iterations on what really matters is simply to look at, well, how am I spending my time? Okay, those things obviously matter, right? Well, they mattered in the moment and we accepted them for reasons. But when we step back and look at the bigger picture, hey, is this taking us to Antarctica or is this taking us to our desert island that we want to retire to? And if it's taking you to the wrong place, well, this is the time to adjust your course. Okay, so this what really matters. Well, let me give you a very personal example. I realized, I'm one of those entrepreneurs who would rather work 80 hours a week for myself than 40 hours a week for someone else. Well, that also
know the pain.
What? Yes.
I'm saying I know the pain.
You know the pain, yes. Well, it's a joy and it's a pain all at the same time. But on the other hand, if I didn't keep, my family on my radar screen, I would forget to do things. So one of the things that I do is I have, health, family, and happiness on my radar screen as something that really matters. And when I do my weekly navigation event, which we call Celebrate and Choose and Personal Agility, celebrate what you accomplished, choose what you'd like to do moving forward. Well, one of the things that I do is I make sure that I've either got something on the radar that I'd like to do this week, or I recognize what I did last week, just to kind of keep, make sure that I'm doing things for my kids. Like last week, I helped my daughter move into her new apartment. She's delighted. And I'm delighted that I got to be a part of that. Okay, and so this is kind of, keeping the forces in balance. Okay, is I think one of the key things, and looking at how you spend your time is your first iteration on what really matters. Now, you may decide, for instance, and I think a lot of people, especially if you're working for a large company, a lot of people are saying, I spend an awful lot of time in meetings. Do those meetings really matter? Okay. And I suspect that in many cases, the answer is probably not. But that also suggests improvement of, well, how can we be more effective by, well, let's spend more of our time on things that bring value to us or our project or our customers or our company, kind of whatever we decide matters, and less of our time in meetings that don't bring any value. So this is how personal agility helps you through to recognize what really matters and to do more of it.
Okay, so you start with the, let's say, a Kanban has this idea of meet them where they are. So you start with how you spend your time now, and then you ask, is it the right way of spending? Do you have any discovery tool into the personal agility? Like, if people has this bothering everyone questions like, what is my life goal and what I want to achieve? Do you have anything to help?
So we have a couple of different approaches, okay, and some of them are based on time, okay. So basically, when you do what we call celebrate and choose, there's 6 questions, okay. The first question is what really matters. If you know the answer to that, that's great. If you don't know the answer, well, you can say, well, let's hold on to that question for a minute and use the rest to kind of figure things out. So the next question is, how do you spend your time? So what did you do? What did you get done? What did you do the last, couple of weeks? Okay. So, here you're just looking at, what actually happened, kind of like a retrospective. Okay. The next question is about the future. What are the things that you could do? So we call this possibilities. Okay. We don't call them to-dos because, hey, we've all got too much to do. So some of the things that we quote should do, we're not going to get done. And that's just the way life is. So let's call them things that we could do. And what we want to do is choose the ones that are going to be most helpful to us.
Yeah, planning too much is always easy. Executing is always hard.
Exactly. Okay. So what could I do? And then, that gives us a list of things that possibly a very long list of things that we feel like we should do, ought to do, want to do, have to do. Our choice of words here is kind of interesting. It tells us a lot about how empowered we feel in our lives. If it's all should and must and then we're not feeling very empowered. If it's more want or would like or would be helpful, that's a more of an empowered way of discussing. And one of the things that happen as people do personal agility is they shift their language to a more empowered language. They start focusing on what they want to do. Okay. So of all the things that you could do, some of them are important for whatever reasons. Some of them are urgent. That means something bad's going to happen if you don't do it soon. And some of them are just going to make you happy. Wait a minute, am I allowed to do things just because they make me happy? And that turns out to be an aha moment for people as well.
Yeah, that's why we have a Facebook. That's why we used to have a Facebook, not anymore now, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, so what we've basically done is of all the possibilities, we've now done a triage. Okay. And now we can say, okay, of those things, what would I really like to get done this week? What do I want to focus on? If I only get 3 of them done, what would they be? Okay. So the idea is this, it's kind of like in sprint planning and Scrum, where you say, okay, we've got this long list of things that we could do. We got a somewhat shorter list of things that are ready, and a still shorter list of things that we feel we can accomplish in the sprint. Now, personal agility is different because personal agility doesn't say we're going to commit to getting this done by the end of the week. We think of it more as a tool to what do we want to focus on? When we get distracted, what do we want to come back to? And it's going to be one of those things. Okay. And what this does, the idea is interruptions happen. It could be anywhere from the customer calling. They say no plan for the day, survives your first customer call. It could be your son or daughter walking in with a skinned knee who has something that needs to be tended to right away. And in all these cases, of course, you're going to do them. Most of these things you can't say no to for whatever reason. So, okay, great. We got to deal with the distraction or the interruption. We deal with it. And then what do we want to come back to? Well, that's going to be one of these things that we've set as kind of our goals for the week. Okay, so the idea is to, if you get blown off course, come back on course. Now, remember we said how you spend your time is a reflection of what really matters. So what you've done is you've gone from looking at how you used your time to how you want to use your time moving forward. And now you can start to kind of look and say, well, what purposes are these things serving? Okay. They might be customer related, they might be work related, they might be family related, they might be work life. Health and fitness are things that people often don't have on their radar screens that they realize, oh, wait a minute. I need to get this on my radar screen. Okay. And so what happens is you've now got something to look at where you can start to identify what matters in your life. Okay. And then you can kind of start to group them and see the priorities and say, okay, for most people, it turns out I got my day job. Maybe I've got a side gig or my hope for the future or the book I want to write or the degree I want to do. We've got some family. So, you get this list of things to do. And you start to think about how much time do I want to be spending on each of them. Okay. And now you can look at how you use your time and say, well, how does that match up with what really matters? And so for me, where I first realized this was realizing, hey, if I want to have a good relationship with my family, I need to do things with and for the family every week. And if I don't do that, then things go in the wrong direction. And so I make sure that there's always something coming in where, my wife and my kids see that I've done something for them. Okay. And that gives me, that's kind of how I stay the person who I want to be. So anyway, so the first method, I think the most powerful method of figuring out what really matters is look at how you use your time, look at how you want to use your time, and then see how it feels in your gut. And if there's an imbalance there, if you say, well, wait a minute, this isn't right, now you can make some changes and adjust that.
All right, I'm gonna ask a quick specific question here because the last time I remember we talk about this, we talk about the weekly cycle, so it works best for you. That was a weekly cycle, and you mentioned this one today as well, but you also mentioned that this could be a few weeks. So I guess that's based more on experience and what you know by now about the how often you shoot, how often it works, how often it doesn't work. What makes sense?
One of the things that I've realized is that this is not a process to follow. Okay, those questions are always there for you. Okay, you can ask those questions anytime. You can move things from your waiting column to your done column at any time. You can plan the day or you can do a wrap up for the day. Sometimes I find it easier to do a wrap up of the day and then think about what I want to do tomorrow than I do to plan the day. I think the important thing here is to recognize the value of cadence. Okay. And so to do things in regular intervals, I still find that once a week is a fairly natural rhythm. Having said that, the time that I wanted to do it is Monday morning, and I find it difficult to defend that time. So sometimes I could go a couple of weeks without doing it, but that doesn't hurt anything because, I come back, the questions are still there. I sharpen my focus for what I want to do moving forward. And, that works too. So, especially when you're getting started, I would suggest kind of doing a full, this real reflection. What did I get done this week? Give yourself a, high five or a pat on the back for what you got done. Think about what really brought you forward. What's the stuff that you really want to celebrate, and that's celebrate and choose, and then think about, okay, given where I am now, what do I want to do moving forward? Any navigation helps you understand if you're on course or not. And obviously, if you do it more frequently, well, then you'll get finer grained navigation. On the other hand, if you do it less frequently, maybe that's the right rhythm for you. So I try to really avoid the words you should, and suggest, well, try this out and see how it works for you. And if you don't do it exactly the way I recommended in the book, that's okay too, because those questions are there for you, not the other way around.
Although what we learn is if you don't plan for this reflection retrospection time, it usually doesn't happen because you have all the other things. So that's why I'm asking, right?
There is some truth in that. Okay, and this is, I think, the difference between personal agility and Scrum. Okay, Scrum says this is the process, follow the process. If you're not following the process, you're not doing Scrum. Personal agility says, here is a tool for navigation and a tool for and an approach to communication, and they can be really helpful to you if you choose to use them. Okay, but it's entirely up to you when and how you do it. Now, if you don't do it, it won't help you. Okay, so that's the trade-off, and so I think it's more of trying for like a peer-to-peer discussion between you and yourself, without anyone holding up their finger and saying you got to do this, otherwise you're a bad boy.
Yeah, the difference might be coming from the situation that in Scrum you work as a team, so you should work as a team at least, and so you have other people expecting you to do something, and you're the only one who skip the retrospection, then it's gonna hurt the team. In this case, the only person you can hurt is basically yourself. So you either put this into your routines and daily routines or weekly routines, or it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think Scrum emerged from project management. Okay. And there was a project manager telling the team what to do. Okay. And Scrum has been letting go of that baggage very slowly for as long as there has been Scrum, but there's still this feeling of, oh, we have to forecast, we have to commit. And if we don't deliver everything we forecasted, somehow that means we're a bad team.
And we're sorry for those teams, by the way.
Sorry?
I said we are sorry for those teams who still think that they need to deliver everything they have committed to.
We feel their pain, yes, intensely. And personal agility is more, it's in some ways you become the product owner of your own life. Okay. And notice, and a real product owner, you make decisions every minute. You make decisions about how to spend your time. Okay. And you're doing a good job. You're doing the best you can. By definition, that's true. And if you choose to say, I need some rest now, and I would love to get some work done, but I'm just too tired. I had that all weekend. Okay. I wanted to do some stuff on Friday, but I was just actually on Thursday, but I was just so tired. I couldn't bring myself to do it. The weekend wasn't any better, but I did do some recreation and I got a massage, which was an amazing thing. And, spent some time in the wellness in the hot water bubbles. And I really slept well last night. And I woke up this morning. I haven't been this full of energy on a Monday morning and I don't know how long, and so, this is, when you're the product owner of your own life, you get to make these decisions. And when you feel your life is working for someone else, well, you always got to make that other person happy. Okay. And, personal agility, certainly when you're doing it for yourself. Now, we can talk about how to extend the patterns of personal agility, beyond, one single person. But where I think personal agility really takes on its power is when we start to use powerful questions, not to have to hold a team together the way Scrum does, but rather to create alignment or to build empathy and create alignment among a group of stakeholders. Okay, so when I say let's take personal agility into a company, usually the first process is, or the first step is what I call align and decide. We've got a big problem in front of us. We've got a lot of stakeholders who are mostly in agreement, but probably don't realize it. And so they need to figure out what they agree on. They need to figure out what they need to work on. They need to frame it in such a way that they can work constructively rather than debating with each other the whole time. Okay. And so where personal agility goes into an organization is to say, okay, how do we create genuine alignment? Okay. In Scrum, the product owner is responsible for the alignment problem. And basically all the noise that happens outside the Scrum team is the product owner's problem. But it really doesn't tell you how to create that alignment. Okay. And one of the problems that Scrum teams often have is the product owner isn't strong enough to protect the team against all the noise that's happening outside. Personal agility takes a different approach. Personal agility says, let's build agreement among those stakeholders about what really matters, and then get them to make a real decision about what really matters and the approach forward. And then you don't have this internal conflict anymore. And that enables decisiveness in the organization, so you can actually hold a priority, for more than a week or so. And, you get decisions that are real decisions, and that enables long-term achievement. Okay, so, what we're seeing with the patterns of personal agility applied into an organization, it's more about the leadership. It's more about being able to, decide on what really matters and then hold your focus over a longer period of time, and then be responsive to new information as it comes in. And it turns out exactly the same building blocks that we use at the personal level, they enable us to build these higher level constructs in an organization.
Interesting. I want to return for a second to the roles, because you said about the product owner, which reminds me something that resonates with me a long time ago when we had this discussion. Is you said you cannot be your own Scrum Master. So how did you approach that in the personal agility?
Well, I tried. I thought I could do it.
Yeah, this is what I remember from the conversations that you tried.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I found helpful, I don't emphasize it much these days because, other things I think are more important, but Scrum has got three roles. We have the product owner who kind of makes decisions about what's valuable. We have the developers who do the work, and we have
which are not the roles anymore.
Sorry?
I'm saying which are not roles anymore, but we still keep them as call them roles.
I'm old enough that I don't feel the need to be politically correct anymore.
Thank you very much. And sorry, Scrum Alliance, if you listen to this podcast, is like we haven't said that. Thank you very much. Okay, sorry. Yeah, you didn't say that. I didn't say that either.
If this were a Scrum class, we teach the reference implementation, and that's important. But anyway, so where were we? Yeah, we're talking about these three. Well, let's be formal and polite here and correct accountabilities. God, yeah, that's why I have mixed feelings about the word accountability, because accountability is has this feeling of this is what you're going to get blamed for.
Yeah. It sounds like the responsibility process from
Christopher Avery.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and where he said that accountability is something that put on you, other people put on. Yeah. Anyway,
the way I interpret accountability in Scrum, and the way I think it also makes sense here, is to say, this is what you're expected to contribute to the team or to the product or to the common good. Okay, the product owner is expected to make sure the product is valuable. Okay, the Scrum Master is expected to ensure that the team can work together effectively. The developers are expected to produce the solution. Okay, and so that's what each one of them does. And if we think of it in those terms, the thing of what accountability does, or the thing what your role does, it kind of says, well, this is my territory and that's your territory, and good fences make good neighbors. So let's have some good battles about what's the border between your role and my role.
Who write the user story and all this stuff.
Yeah, and so this notion of figuring out, setting priorities. Okay, that's kind of what the product owner does. Okay, and that's a valuable concept. Stepping back to ask questions, that's what the Scrum Master does. That's a valuable concept. And actually doing the work. Someone has to do the work of your life, and that's you. And that's not something you can delegate. Okay, so the interaction between these things, I think, are very valuable, very helpful thought models. And I have found it useful in the time that I have been doing it to work with what we call a celebration coach. That is someone who asks questions. I've experimented with working with a product owner, but I really feel it's at least for me, I have not been able and don't really want to give up the responsibility for my life. Now, where you might do that is like if you're working in a company, okay, and your manager takes on that product owner role. So what do? Well, a lot of people have a one-on-one. So you use that one-on-one in the questions of personal agility to kind of sync up on where you are, what's really matters to the big picture, and how are you going to contribute that? Okay, and so your manager is now in this decision-making role. You are asking questions, okay, and then eventually you're going to go off and do the work. And it turns out that asking questions, that's really important for building empathy and trust. And it's important for you to understand the big picture. So when you get into a situation and you have to make a decision, you understand the big picture so you can make a good decision, rather than having to go back to the manager and say, oh, I've got this problem, what do I do? Okay, that's the problem with command and control management, is it creates these bottlenecks where you have to go back to the commander because people don't see the big picture, so they're not able to make good decisions on themselves. And so I think when we talk about leadership training, and this is actually what we're doing with the personal agility program, is what we're really teaching people to do is to ask powerful questions. So that they see the big picture, and that the whole mission command thing and the product goal and the sprint goal that you have in Scrum, that these things really work.
All right, before we hit the program, just talking about the Scrum Master. So you mentioned that you're looking for the coach. So what did you experiment with? What works, what doesn't?
So what I find works well is I sit down with my wife once every 2 to 3 weeks. We don't quite make it every week, but we kind of review what's happened. We review what's coming up. That gives us actually a very interesting pattern at home. I call it conflict prevention. There was a guy, John Gottman, who was kind of one of the foundational researchers on what makes relationships succeed and fail. And he said there are 3 ways to deal with conflict. You either avoid it, you discuss it, or you fight about it. But what we do is actually something different. We recognize conflict potential early, so that we can find a way for it. So let's say, like, today we had the planning, and we said, oh, wait a minute, we've got a guest coming on Friday. And oh, what does that mean? Oh, well, I'm actually teaching a course on Friday and he's coming in about lunchtime, so I'm not going to be able to pick him up. So now is a good time to discover that my wife needs to support me here and go pick up our guest, or we've got to come up with some other plan B. But imagine if we were having that conversation at 3 o'clock Friday morning, where I'm getting ready to do my course in Sri Lanka, and she's not even out of bed yet. And I say, oh, by the way, you need to pick up our friend at the airport. That's a high conflict situation that really doesn't need to be. Okay, so this concept of kind of synchronizing over what's happened. She, by the way, was also put in really to celebrate and choose. Yeah, you get a lot of things done, but some of the things move you forward, and some of them make you happy, and some of them help you become the person who you want to be. So let's focus on those things when we review where we are, and then we think about what to do moving forward. And as I say, this is also proven a sync up point for us. So for any couple. I realize you say, well, my spouse should be my scrum master, and a lot of people they get
yeah. I'm always saying to my wife, don't coach me. And when the moment she started asking the coaching question and opening question, so that's my reaction. But yeah, it can work as well.
Well, what I found is what for me has been important is if you have someone who's going to be your celebration coach, they should at least understand the coaching stance. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be your coach, okay? And coaching requires permission, but what's not necessarily helpful is being a solution provider either. We don't want to go into the details. It's the purpose of the celebration is to help you recognize where you are and make decisions about what needs to happen moving forward. So it's more a moment for divergence, if you will. It's looking at possibilities. There is some convergence that happens, but it's more convergence on what you want to solve, not necessarily on how you're going to solve them. Okay, so all of a sudden I see a pattern in sprint planning coming up as well. We defer the how to the last possible moment. The first is to recognize what's happened, what could happen, what do we want to have happen, and only then do we want to start talking about the how. So Scrum got a lot of it right, although I just feel that Scrum it's very focused to a very specific environment. Okay, and so for me, personal agility is taking a lot that happened in Scrum and going back to first principles, and how shall I say, expressing them in a more general and less constraining way, which makes it suitable for a broader context of applications.
Okay, so let's close with one more question. You mentioned the program, so let's see what you have except for the book. So people can get the book at Amazon, I guess.
Right. That's correct. Yes. Okay. We all three formats: Kindle format. You can get it on paperback, and you can also get a hardback. Someone even ordered the hardback. I was really surprised. People do that. It's still a thing.
I mean, I do prefer the physical books still.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I like physical books too because I can hold them up and I can also sign them, and so
that's exactly. Yes, okay. And the other part of the program.
So what we're doing is there's kind of two ways that we're doing it. So Maria, her focus is more on working with people facing personal challenges. Okay, and so for instance, we're working with the Veterans Organization in the U.S. to help veterans ease the transition of going back into civilian life. Okay, so she's created a system of kind of micro credentials where you work your way through a program, and eventually you complete the program and get a recognition for each step, and then you get a recognition that you've completed the program. My own focus is much more on organizations. Remember, I said time is your most valuable currency. One of the things I've come to believe is that most companies, they may ask you to approve, every 50 cents that you spend on a paperclip, but boy, you can set up as many meetings as you want with as many people as you want. And well, I'll save you the math, but for every 100 people you have working in the company, my guess is only about 44 of them are actually doing the work of the company at any given time. Everyone else is in a meeting. Okay, so meetings have just kind of, and I think it's gotten worse since COVID because now almost everything is a meeting. You've got it because we do it on Zoom. And I think that this is hugely wasteful. And so if we say 100 people, okay, I've been asking around what do 100 people cost, and I've been getting numbers between 200,000 and 300,000. These are Western European numbers, and exactly what the currency unit seems to vary. But let's take the lower limit. Let's say 200 people. Okay, oh, sorry, 200,000 times 100 people. That means you're spending $20 million a year to keep these people engaged, but only 44 of them are doing work. Now, let's say you wanted to increase the power of your organization by 50%. Well, to do that, if you don't change how you work, you got to hire another 50 people. So that's another 10 million. Okay. Or if you could improve, and by the way, if you look at how Agile team works, they only spend about 10% of their times, maybe 20% at the most. So if we could get most of the people in the company to look more like an Agile team and an Agile organization, we could easily turn those 44 into 66 without any additional cost. Okay. It's all about how you spend your time. So, the personal agility leadership framework is focused on this effective use of time in the organization. Okay. How can we get how shall I say, the useful payload? We've got the dead weight that we have to carry along with us. We got the useful payload that brings value to the company and to the customers. How do we maximize the useful payload? And, I think most companies could, as I say, I think they could improve their productivity by 50% by paying attention to what we're doing. So there's a lot of, so that's what the program is about. We're only doing it as a private program. Okay. Because it's very, very difficult to sell new courses these days unless someone says, I want them. So basically what we're doing is we're reaching out to companies, companies who say, I really want to get my useful payload from 44 to 66. And then we start working with them to help them be more effective organizations.
Yeah, I was just going to say the lean concept of removing the waste instead of adding the process, right?
Yeah. This is very well aligned with lean. It's about removing waste. We see it expressed in the multitasking problem. That is, the more multitasking you have, the lower the effective. It takes you 6 months to do what you could have done in a week if you had been focused. And another expression of the multitasking problem is the too many meetings problem. Okay, so basically, if you think you got a too many meetings problem or you think you got a multitasking problem, I think there's huge benefit. And that's what the Personal Agility Leadership Program is all about.
And we're gonna put the link into the program under the recording. So anyone interested in contacting Peter or Maria, you guys can reach to those people and, increase your productivity and remove the pain of too many meetings.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for this conversation. Enjoy it. As I said, we're going to put some additional information, and thanks for anyone who listened to us. Feel free to subscribe to our channel to get information about the next recording. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomek.
To learn more, visit procognita.com/getagile.